everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. Today we're joined by a special guest, someone you might know. It's Hades. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thanks. Yeah, really well. Excited to be on, actually. Excited, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the channel. We just recorded a video over on Hades' channel as well. We were talking about champions we'd look for takeovers for clan boss, either Demon Lord or Hydra. So that was really interesting. But I'm going to be picking your brain a little bit today for some off-meta picks, basically some of our favorite champions that we like to use that we think people don't give enough credit to. Maybe they're not recognized that much at being that good, but they just hold a special place in our heart or maybe a special place in some of our teams. So yeah, will I start off and then do you want to go after that?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, my number one, I called her my favorite champion when I did her champion guide, and I think it still stands. It's a high elf, and it's Eleanor. She's a champion that goes under a lot of people's radar. I think she's maybe come up a bit more recently, but she's just part of a bunch of my speed farm teams. She's a poison explosion champion. Her A3 combust instantly deals all damage from poison debuffs on all enemies instantly. And then her A2 as well is an AoE attack that puts out 2 poison debuffs as well. So I run her in a poison explosion team. I have a guide on her on the channel as well if people want to see that in action. But I have her in there with Tomb Lord and some reset champions and all that sort of stuff. And they just completely destroy those waves. So for me, it was kind of a revelation. It was during one of the a 10 times event maybe when I pulled her or something like that, where there was a different poison champ, might have been Calvalax or something like that, was boosted, and I was like, I really want to get a Calvalax for a poison team. And I pulled, believe it or not, Eleanor and then Rishtov the Bold, and I was like, are these champions really good? And I was looking at them and going, oh wait, the two of them together could do a poison explosion team. So I built her out, and yeah, I use her everywhere. A lot of people I think use Zavia instead because she has like block revive as well on her move.
I think if you don't have a seer, then it becomes the next best option, doesn't it? It's like the next best thing to look for quick runs or high damage runs is one of those poison explosions. But I remember when I did a video on this a while ago, it was like, how do we do max damage with these type of champions? The cool thing about the two of them actually is you don't need to build them for damage at all. The damage is set. It's just ripping poisons off of people is the damage. That's it.
Yeah,
which is very cool because it just means that you can build them in a slightly different way to either add some survivability or definitely a cool champion. I think the other thing is she's got an A1 which can't be resisted, right? I'm thinking of the right one.
That's it. Unresistible HP burn.
When you're talking about something like Sorath, actually really useful.
Yeah, she goes into my team there. She's actually great for that because she kills the little spiderlings on the side of Sorath really quickly as well with the poison and blowing it up.
Sure.
So she helps rip through them. But I've got mine built in a very generalist build. She's actually got solid enough multipliers. So I just build her for damage too. You know, it helps killing the Fire Knight faster or whatever. But yeah, she's just, I love her. I think she's just a great champion and a champion that a lot of people probably don't really know about or think about that much because, I mean, your first thought is you go straight to the Seers and those sorts of champs, but
100%.
Eleanor's up there. Yeah.
All right, cool one. Yeah.
All right. What's your first?
So my first one is a Sacred Order epic.
Oh.
This is, and I don't know if I say this right, honestly, Sanguina.
Sanguina, yeah. Okay.
I mean, she doesn't talk much. She doesn't really look at your face, but she is actually someone who goes under the radar as a really great support champion. So pretty fast, good defensive stats, but it's mainly her A2 and A3 combined, which just give her the edge in a lot of fights. There's so many bits of content now where we just get kind of showered with debuffs.
Yes.
And, you know, our champions are just kind of struggling to deal with it. So the A3... basically, if you book her out, and there are quite a lot of books on this champion's A3, but overall, it's not too bad. So yeah, basically, you can book up to 100% chance of taking all of the debuffs from this champion to a target, and does a cleanse as well. So, and then she's got the block debuffs on her A2. I just feel like she's overlooked. You know, if you've got something like Agref and you're struggling with the poison damage that's coming at you, you can actually throw some of that back and clean off your team. I just think she's a good champion that's perhaps not utilized that much.
Yeah, 100%. I actually hadn't realized she was this good until we sat down and read her kit here. That's pretty awesome. She'd be great for Hydra as well, actually, cleansing your team off. You can throw poisons back at some of the heads in Hydra. Most of
Yeah,
them
it's a
are
bit
immune.
random. Well, not random, but I remember throwing my Calvalax into one rotation, being like, "This is going to be great to show." And three of the heads just resisted it all.
Yeah. But like, it could be one way to kill the cleansing head. I think is one that's actually vulnerable, Head of Blight. So you could put it back on him. That's cool though. Yeah, and he's got the nice healing on the A2 as well. Pretty nice. Yeah. That's a cool champ. Yeah, cool. I like her. Very red champion as well.
Yeah.
I'm slightly colorblind, but I actually feel like the red on her armor doesn't quite match the red on her hood. I'm not sure if that's just me though.
No, it's like she's kind of stolen the armor off someone else, and she's wearing a dress underneath it.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Well, my next one, I'm going to the Banner Lords, and it's a guy I actually almost fully booked him today in CVC. And I think he's going to be pretty cool. It's Sigmund the Highshield, who was one of our fusions last year. I actually think
I didn't do fusion, I didn't do it.
A lot of people skipped it because that was the one with Demitha in there as well as one of the epics, who's obviously incredible. I'm pretty sure that was the Demitha fusion.
That's right, yeah.
But I think he's actually a fantastic champion. Like, we look at his base stats, he's got solid base defense, but he also has an absolute ton of HP. He has a Brogni style shield on his A3, Shield of the Realm. Shield buff equal to 30% of his max HP on all allies, and also gives you a strengthen for 2 turns as well. That's on a 3-turn cooldown. So going into something like Hydra, I was actually trying to design some of my teams, and Brogni is obviously fantastic for that. And I was going, okay, how can I supplement Brogni? How do I replace Brogni in other teams? I had Tatora Rhymehide in some teams, who gives you Veil, which is great against Head of Torment. It gives you that block debuffs and increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, but you miss out on the Brogni shield. I said, hey, Sigmund, he goes super well with Tatora, right? You get the block debuffs from Tatora and increased defense, which is going to up Sigmund's damage. And then Sigmund gives you a shield. He gives you that strength, and he's going to make you super tanky against the damage that's coming in. Help your squish your champion stay alive. His A2, 3-turn cooldown, AoE attack hits twice. Each hit can provoke, so that's great for Doom Tower for any progress in dungeons. And then he also has, in fact, each hit has a 75% chance unbooked of placing decreased attack. So even if he's not booked out, it's almost guaranteed, to put that decreased attack out.
I think that's the nice thing, is if you can run him without feeling like you need to allow loads of resources, as in like books and that into him, then it makes it valuable, doesn't it? I mean, I admit I didn't use this guy, or I've not really used this guy, and I see a lot of people telling me this guy is awesome for faction wars, like taking a team through. Because he's just got he's like your team tank.
Yeah.
Which you need to keep everybody alive. So he's going to help you do that with those provokes.
Yeah.
Interesting actually. Did he get a buff after he was released, or is this just
no
as he was?
No, it's just as he was. Then for Hydra specifically, and I'm looking at him specifically for rotation 4. Where you've got the Cleansing Head, the Poison Cloud Head, and the Head of Mischief who's stealing your buffs. And it's like, okay, it's going to be a nightmare because we put block buffs out on these guys, and then the Head of Decay cleanses them off, and then the Head of Mischief is So how am I going to deal with this? I actually think Sigmund is one potential answer, maybe not the best answer, but a good supplement at the very least, right? Whenever he's attacked, if it's a boss, 40% chance to decrease the duration of all buffs on the attacker by 1 turn. So that actually triggers reasonably well. And then I put him in a couple of revenge accessories. So he's a 10% chance to counterattack with his A1. Even put him in a counterattack comp with like a Skull Crush or something like that. His A1, when it's booked up, 100% chance to remove a random buff from the enemy. So if he starts getting off counterattacks, he starts stripping off those buffs. Could be a nice way to get like that increased attack off the Head of Wrath, and just to mitigate that Head of Mischief a little bit. So it's not bad, I remember when he first came out, everyone was kind of going like, where is this actually going to be useful? It turns out it's actually...
I must admit, I was one of those. I was like slating this guy when he came out. And I think it was Cold Brew at the time. I was like, this guy's not that bad. I was thinking, it looks bad to me. But actually, like it feels like he's got use now.
Yeah. Maybe when you do one of your maximum damage things on him, we'll see how he does. Because his multipliers are actually solid, actually, as well. Like he should do... I think a little bit less. He does less than Tatora, but it's not that far behind. He's actually got solid multipliers. Though he's quite stat hungry. You kind of want to build up all of his stats. He does so many, uses so many so well, and 40% defense aura for Doom Tower. So I think if you got this guy, and especially if you're progressing Doom Tower hard, and you want someone that's good for Hydra, that sort of content as well, I think Sigmund is your guy. Yeah, he's actually really nice. He's got a fantastic mustache as well, I have to say.
For me, that's the best thing. That's the best thing on his kit.
Yep. All right, dude. What's your next one?
So my next one, I mean, she's relatively old in the game. She's one of the OGs in Night Revs.
Okay.
So I'm picking out Tenacious, the epic.
I don't have
her.
her.
We do see her.
I don't have
we see we kind of see her in a lot of arena teams, yeah? So it's like an arena called a blender team where an ally attacker will come in and her with Skull Crown together will just blow up enemy teams.
Yeah.
And it's a really great kind of team setup. But I think she's overlooked in general content. And she actually hits really hard with her A1 for someone who's got such a low base attack.
Yeah.
But she's also got some nice healing. So she's got an A2 where she can lock somebody out. She can just like pick one person out of the crowd and lock out their abilities whilst healing someone on your team.
Yeah.
And then the A3 does this fairly unique healing mechanic. So it's an equalize. And what that basically does is it pretty much throws all of the HP into a pot and then spreads it out again between the team. And it feels to me like she just heals everyone to full. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like it's not doing what it says on the tin. And she does a heal as well, but it's a great healing mechanic if you've got someone who's kind of squishy in the team.
Yeah.
And just feels like a solid champion. I run her in a stun set personally because of the potential extra hits on the A1. And she's also got this kind of weird coding in her kit that the extra hit counts as a second hit. So she would proc something like stun set twice.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
There's not many people who've got this kind of weird coding where it kind of works in that way. But yeah, Sinasha is, for me, just one of the better epics that people just don't really use in general content.
Yeah, she's one. I'd never pulled her, actually. I've got right beside each other Sinasha and Doom Priest right there. I never got either one, and they're both very much wanted.
Doom Priest as well, Doom Priest is
I'm missing
since Doom Tower. Doom Priest is just huge.
Yeah. But Sinasha is super cool. It's a nice thing, right? It lets your lifesteal sets or your continuous heals or whatever little trickle healing from Brogni and all that sort of stuff start to work on your team, like with that equalize HP. Lets everyone's little self healing or whatever start to get value, even if it doesn't fully heal them. So yeah, that's really, really nice. Okay, for my next one, I want to do a champion that I just did a video on over the weekend, actually, and that's it's Helior. I think a few people have started using him a bit more. I know that like Boomer and MacChan have talked a bit about Helior as well for like really high-end arena, but I've been using him there as well, thanks to the Stone Skin set. That is what has enabled for me, my Helior, to actually work and do his thing. Because we talk about, these stat-hungry champions, and Helior is very stat-hungry. He wants resistance to, he can throw debuffs from all of your team back onto the enemy, kind of like Sanguina. He uses his resistance as extra accuracy, so you can build him really high resistance in the arena. He survives those debuffs, and then he cleanses your team, throws them back. But then he also, his A1, it starts to stack up his defense more and more every time he crits. And he's defense based, so he wants really high defense. He wants crit rate, 100% crit rate. He'd love to have crit damage then to start hitting harder. He has this A2 AoE attack shield buff based off the damage inflicted. So again, you're going, okay, so now I need that crit rate, that crit damage and defense to do this. But you start building him with those offensive stats, and then he just gets killed by AoE hits because of his passive. Whenever an ally has 2 or more debuffs, he absorbs 30% of the damage inflicted on that ally. So he's kind of like a...
Oh, I get it now. I was going to say, like, where does Stone Skin come into this? But that is it, right?
This is where, yeah. So, like, going up against Ursiga in the arena, Ursiga Warcaller, like, typically people are building her out just super tanky because she doesn't need to do much offensively, right? She just tanks all the damage. She puts strength in on her team, and she's done her job, and they have, like, 100,000 HP or more. And you can do that with Helior as well. It does work, but you put him in Stone Skin... And then suddenly, all that damage he's absorbing, it doesn't matter. It just goes into that Stone Skin shield, and he is just sitting there. He's totally fine. There's almost no chance that he gets, debuffs on himself, that he gets crowd control, because Stone Skin's gonna protect him from even really high accuracy debuffers. Like they've got a 50-50 chance to strip it, like with a Madame Ceres or something like that. We have a good chance. So he can come in, throw that stuff back. You can build it. You can just completely ignore his HP, leave him actually quite squishy HP wise, and crank up the defense, the crit damage, the crit rate, so he can actually smack with this AoE, put a big shield out, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I was been trying it out, and I haven't got him booked yet. That's the downside, is that he does need to be booked because he gets about 30% more damage from books. But like, I've got him just really slow, but with a really high crit rate and some crit damage and resistance. And he's actually been performing really well. He has over 100,000 power as well, which I do think is funny.
How much damage does he actually do?
It's decent.
Have you kind of... Yeah, it's okay. Because I know a few people, I didn't actually end up getting it. I know he was on a guaranteed event at one point, and I didn't pick him up. But yeah, a lot of people said to me, he's okay, but his damage doesn't feel like it's very legendary.
It's not super high. So, for example, I think there's a 3 times defense multiplier on the A2, the AoE attack. So it's, it's not super high. But I think it's sort of tuned as if he gets up to 20% extra defense from his A1 stacking up. So when he ramps up, he does start to do good damage. But I mean, for the purposes of Arena, with Stone Skin, it tends to be pretty good. Like, he does, even unbooked for me without that 30% extra damage, like when he does that AoE hit in Arena, it's doing something like 20 to 30,000 damage, which tends to rip through like I put them against speed teams, and it can rip through like the squishy, whatever, nuker, like a Foley or something that's in there with the Arbiter. Will pretty much one-shot them and take Arbiter down pretty low. So it gives you a chance. So yeah, I think he's pretty good. Yeah, like a lot of people didn't really use him. I didn't use him for ages. I tried, and he would just die. I don't have reaction accessories. He'd just die. But Stone Skin has opened him up to being pretty badass. So yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. I need to check out your video on it.
yeah, so, it's good fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
So I guess the next one I'm going to call out here is... And this isn't my own work, I'm going to be honest. So it's a dwarf, and it is Cornelia.
Nice.
And I remember when she first came out, I remember saying, her kit looks funky and it looks cool. I can't work out where she's going to be good yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure she will be a good champion, but I cannot work out where we're going to use her. And for this one, I need to call out YST.
Yeah.
Because he has invested a lot of time and effort in this champion, and he has got Cornelia soloing all sorts of Doom Tower bosses. Like, I mean, Bommel for sure. I think Griffin as well. He just, and he's basically using her ability to put herself to sleep and wake herself up, taking a massive heal. So when the bombs go off on Bommel, she does basically like a full heal of herself. She wakes up and then she goes again. She's not like the quickest. She's not the quickest like damage dealer, but someone that I kind of looked at initially and thought, I can't really work out where she's good. It turns out she's actually a really interesting solo kind of champion.
Yeah.
Also quite cool in the arena, just to get one of your champions back round to another turn really fast, and keep them alive. So I like champions like this where you look at their kit initially and you think, I don't really know what to do with them yet, but they're going to be good.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
I don't know if you saw YST's video where he was trying her in the arena, but she does a really interesting thing, kind of like Kymar, where her A2, it's an AoE sleep. So, again, she's got really high base speed, 109. So, you can build her as like that, basically a budget Kymar type champion for the arena. But one really cool thing in that video, right, is that whenever an enemy loses sleep placed by this skill, 50% chance, that bucks up to 70% chance to replace it with fear for one turn instead.
Fear out there,
But here's the thing. I was watching his video and he was going up against a Riho Bone Spear who removes all debuffs and then puts block debuffs and whatever else on their team.
Sure.
But what happens is that Riho comes in, she's like, I remove all the debuffs, so she removes the sleep, and then she's like, I'm going to put that block debuffs, and Cornelia's like, what? Hold on a second there, you removed my sleep. Before you put that block debuffs on, let me just place a fear on that Trunda. Okay, fear's on? Okay, now you can put the block debuffs on.
Serious? Yeah. It's that way around.
yeah, it is.
That's actually cool,
So you can see it in YST's video. It happened twice in that video. It happened against a Riho Bone Spear and also against a Skytouch Shaman. Where they remove the debuff, they put block debuff. But Cornelia's just like, I'm just gonna slip that fear in there while you're waiting, which is insane. Like that's something that like a Kymar can't do. Like if they get cleansed and woken up, you're like, oh, I'm in trouble now. But Cornelia does it, which is really intriguing. So yeah, just such an interesting champion, 100%. Really,
Yeah,
really cool.
like I say, like I mean, I don't have one that I've built out and I've used in tons of places. I'm just starting to see her being used in really interesting ways, which I think is cool. It's actually one of the things I love the most about this game. It's kind of like when they release someone and they're interesting, but you don't quite know how good they can be yet. I think that's what Raid is all about for me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, for my next one then, I'm going to go to another champ I did a video on recently, and I've been really enjoying her. It's actually Mother Cybele, which is very similar. Oh, okay. Yeah, very similar. In the sense that, she's this really weird champion, and you first see her, and like you see this uncanny transfer, and you're like, what is this essay? What does this do?
It's like get my glasses out. Come on.
Yeah. Oh man. So it's really intimidating, but she actually works really well. Like I've seen a bunch of people using her for Hydra, which is where I started using her, and I've been using her in the arena as well. But she has this incredible base stats, right? 115 base speed is incredible. 19,000, almost 19,000 base HP, bunch of base defense. But she actually puts out really high consistent damage, right? Her A1 is an AoE attack, which has a 50% of decreased speed, which is where I really got interested in her for Hydra. It's like, okay, this is a very consistent source of decreased speed. That's even a bit auto-friendly, right? You don't need to worry as much about it being cleansed because she's going to just keep doing it over and over again. But it actually hits pretty hard. It's got like a 2 times HP multiplier. So I actually did the maths and I worked out that if you compare it to like a Magnar, over multiple turns, if she just spams this A1, she'll actually outdamage Magnar in AoE. Wow. Just because she's got so many hits against like 4 or more targets. So like, for example, against the Hydra, I think someone left a comment saying actually that Magnar's second hit, it's like one of those weird coding things where it doesn't count properly as an AoE, so it bypasses Hydra's AoE resistance, which sort of brings Magnar a bit more into the equation.
True,
but then again, Mother Cybele, she procs War Master every time she does this A1, potentially an AoE, so it does add up. And then she's got like, increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown with Revive on Death. This is great for the arena. And again, nice for Hydra. You bring her in, you get a speed aura, AoE attacks with decreased speed, you get increased defense, Revive on Death can keep you safe. Her A3 is really weird.
It is weird. I was going to say, something like the A3, would you eat Hydra? I guess you would just turn it off, would you?
Yeah, so I mostly just turn it off. I think that she is... You could potentially do something fun with her. Mine's not built to do it, but because this puts out so many buffs, you could potentially use that for like a Head of Mischief tank. That you would have. You could potentially have her or someone else stacked with really high resistance, and maybe it would work. Now, I haven't tried it. It seems difficult to make it work, but it's possible. It's something I might look into. But I mostly just leave it turned off. I might use it on manually sometimes during Hydra, or I just leave her just do her thing in the arena. She can be a real nightmare to fight against in the arena, I think. I remember fighting a Mother Cybele team and I was like, this would be really easy. And then this Mother Cybele, I don't know what she was built in. I think it was just really high HP but with high crit rate and like a regen set, but she just kept topping herself up and blasting out these AoE hits, and it was just ripping my team apart, and I was kind of going, oh my goodness, this is actually kind of terrifying. So I think she's quite underrated. Anyway, I built her for damage so that she's more likely to die, which can then trigger her passive, which is, whenever she dies, she heals someone, she gets revived, she heals everyone a bit and fills turn meter. So I was like, you know what, I can afford to leave her be a bit more squishy, and we just build her to kind of start smacking damage. She brings some good utility, and hey, if she gets killed because she's built for more damage, it's actually fine because of her passive. I felt when she was built for support, when she's built tanky, it's like she is just full HP all the time. Like she never comes close to dying. So she's an interesting one. Just unique. She's very unique.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's rock on to mine. So my next one is a Dark Elf.
Okay.
And I don't know if I could class him as underrated, but certainly I see too many people not using him. So Ghostborn, legendary champion, and
there he is.
I mean, if you actually look at end game teams for people that have played the game for a long time, he tends to feature in a lot of them. So people that want to bypass inconsistency, people that want to lose that kind of RNG factor. Well, this guy, he's basically the only person in the game that's got an AoE drop defense ability, which cannot be resisted.
Yes.
And people are like, well, yeah, but I've got loads of AoE drop defense champions that have got the ability on 100% chance.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily realize that every single time you try and land it, it's a 3% chance you're just not going to hit it.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy, 100% of the time, as long as it's not a weak affinity, will land this ability. And so for me, I've started to plow him into my Dragon 25 team, my Finite 25 team.
Nice.
And I see a lot of people using them as well in kind of Doom Tower waves if they're trying to get that consistent seer kill done or whatever. So there's just a lot of places where he can be really useful. And the cool thing is if you just built him for this skill and you had like a reset type mechanic going, then you don't even need to build any accuracy in his kit, so you can actually build him to smack as well.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think of that.
That's cool. So it's kind of fun, but otherwise he does bring a couple of other debuffs as well. He's got another AoE hit, and actually so I don't know if he's the only champion that gets damage based off speed as well.
I was gonna say that's really unusual.
Very unusual, yeah, but he's just a cool champion that people tend to leave in their vault because they don't fully understand how neat and cool he is. So yeah, nothing too weird and wonderful in his kit. It's mainly that A3 is just, as I say, unique in the game.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember when I first started playing, I think him and Vizix were like two of the champions, even just visually. I was like, wow, these champions look cool.
Yeah.
Like, I love the war paint, the sort of tattoos. I just think it's really badass. Looks amazing
for
too.
Sure.
Yeah, he's cool. Okay, for my last one then, I changed this one because of the video we recorded over on your channel. I'm giving the shout out to my girl Tanix, Hate Flower. She's coming in. So Tanix Hate Flower, one of the login reward champions who up until very recently I think was just considered to be pretty terrible. But two things have come in that have made her really good. So the first one is in Hydra. I think she's actually a great Hydra champion, right? She does need a lot of books, especially on that A2, and it does need to be booked. But when you book it up, 100% chance to put decreased speed for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. And if she crits that enemy, she actually puts that decreased speed on all enemies. And this, again, it goes through things like Poison Cloud. It goes onto the Head of Mischief, all that stuff. So it's a very consistent source of decreased speed for the Hydra clan boss, which is really useful. And then she with her A1, she heals all allies by 3% of her max HP whenever she hits targets under decreased speed. So actually, I think it might be just her HP. I'm not sure if it's her max HP or her current HP. I don't know. Anyway, but she does these multiple hits. She's pumping out some healing. She's slowing them down. And then she has like a bulwark mastery built in, decreases damage all allies receive by 5%, and she takes that damage instead. So she does get a little bit beat up because of that, because, you got to build her pretty fast, and she needs accuracy. She needs that 100% crit rate. So she gets a bit beat up, but if you keep her alive, I was surprised when I threw her into Hydra. I was like, wow, this actually made the run much smoother. Like that decreased speed and that bit of extra survivability she's providing actually added up to much more than the sum. It's greater than the sum of its parts, basically.
Yeah, I guess you can start to stack some of these damage mitigation type things. They don't stack like 1+1 type of thing, but they do stack upon each other. And I think actually if you've got a few epics with that same type of damage mitigation, it starts to become really useful. It's almost like having a strength buff on all the time. Yeah,
definitely. So she's pretty cool. Now, one thing, I tried her in Faction Wars, and her AI is not very smart. So you'll get to the Faction War boss, and she'll literally just sit there, and the boss won't have decreased speed, and she's just gonna A1 over and over again. And it's like, there's no healing, there's no decreased speed, and you're like, Tanix, what are you doing?
What?
But it's completely wonky. But thankfully, they've added like whatever 15 preset teams now for Faction Wars. So now she actually works properly. You just put her in your Faction War team, set up the AI preset, and you're like, number 1 priority, Spiteful Cut. Just do it. Just get it out there.
Yeah.
And then she'll go and do it. Then she actually works and she actually heals and stuff. So I can't remember. I might actually have her in my Faction War team at the moment. I'm not sure.
I've got to admit, this is not a champion that I've ever built out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I saw your video on Hydra where you were talking about it, and I was like, I need to just check my ratings on Tanix in case people start coming complaining. That's the type of video where people are like, your website's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, she is pretty bad nearly everywhere else. It's very unusual that, because you need that decreased speed and then she heals. It's like perfect for Hydra, where they take less turns, they eat your champion slower, you get a much better run. Like in a dungeon or something, like you put out decreased speed, then you kill the wave, you go into wave 2, and then you've got this champion sat there who's doing nothing. So, I mean, when she first came out, I'm sure she was terrible. It's really only recently that with Hydra that I think...
As they add content,
where it's like, okay, actually, she's not bad for this. She's actually pretty cool. So, Yeah, it was fun actually using Tanix. There you go. All right. Do you have one last one, or was that
Yeah,
it?
one last one.
One
So
last
same
one.
faction actually.
Cool.
And this is I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is someone that would be classed as underrated, but I don't see him built out as often as he should be. So Chak the Wenderin.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel like this is such a cool champion design. Like it's so clever the way they've built this champion out.
Yeah.
And mainly what I love is the passive actually, but the passive paired with the A3.
Mm-hmm.
So the passive here, basically everyone in your whole team starts to get heals if there's burns out, and gets turn meter if there's freezes out. And there's a lot of content now, obviously, but it's mainly good for Spider, but there's other content like Doom Tower Waves where this can be really useful.
Yeah.
But you just pair him with an HP burn champion. Generally, his A3 is always a freeze. It's pretty much the only place where it's not a freeze where you, and it's probably where you want it to be a freeze, is Bommel, where it decides to be a burn. Basically, everywhere else it's a freeze. Even if you're up against like what you would class as tank waves, you're up against a bunch of Tayrells or something.
Yeah.
Apparently their attack is still higher than their defense, so it's still still goes the wrong way. But yeah, basically because it's always a freeze, you're getting a load of turn meter back with that passive, and with a burn as well, and it just becomes like a deadly combo, especially on Spider.
Yeah.
So really fun champion. Also has got block debuffs and a strength buff, so on the A2, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
We'll do that as a priority often.
Yeah.
His AI kind of flips sometimes, but generally he likes to do that as his priority. So you do kind of need to tell him to use his A3 more often.
Yeah.
Like, that is your better ability, just so you know, attack.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, really cool. I really like this champion. I think too often I see him sitting in people's vaults.
Yeah. I run him in a couple of teams. So I run him for Spider. But then one of my personal favorite teams, I don't even know if I've showcased it properly on my channel yet, but it's the Tormund machine gun team for Doom Tower Waves, where like Achak comes in, does the AoE freeze, and someone else puts out HP burn. Like I've got, I think, Ninja and Yoshi the Drunkard in there actually. And then Tormund, I was lucky enough to get a Tormund. The Tormund's A1, whenever someone who's both frozen and HP burn takes a turn, he just A1s them, which then has a chance to freeze. So you just have this machine gun Tormund just slamming out the damage. And it's one of the most fun ways to get through Doom Tower. But Achak's really good for that too, because you run into some of those waves which have like War Chief in them, reflecting damage, which is a recipe for Tormund just killing himself very quickly. But even that healing from Achak adds up and actually can keep your team topped up and alive. So yeah, it's really fun.
And it's actually, a lot of people don't, a lot of people just forget with the Tormund that if you do start getting HP burn and freeze together, he kicks out a ton of damage. He's got some of the best multipliers in the game. He starts ignoring defense and all sorts. People just kind of use him for his passive, but he's actually insanely good as a champion. Yeah, once you start to read his kit and understand it.
Yeah, he does some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there you go. All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for jumping onto the channel and for giving us some insight into some of those underrated champions as well. It's cool. I'm going to be looking through and possibly gearing up some champions now after this. Cornelia is like, she's jumped to the top of that list.
And for me, like YST is kind of like, we're doing the stuff I'm thinking, I need to do that. I need to be playing around with this champion.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, look, thanks for having me on. It's been really good fun. Really appreciate you inviting me on the channel.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, Hell Hades, his channel is going to be linked down in the description if anyone wants to find it. I'm sure basically everyone knows about Hell Hades anyway, but go check it out and check out the video we did there as well. And yeah, again, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks.